Good morning, everyone. I'll just wait for a few minutes just to get everybody signed in and then we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. Just saying good morning as we wait for others to join. Okay, I don't see the numbers going up now on the participant numbers there, so I guess I'll get started with today's webinar. So thanks to all for joining today. Thank you very much. We're super excited to have you. Today, we are presenting on L7's ESP, that's the Enterprise Science Platform, and how we can empower Canada's biomanufacturing and life science strategy with this technology. So this is a enterprise tool platform that we can use for the Hub Club to accelerate vaccine and therapeutics production. Our speaker today is Vasu Rangadas, and he is the CEO of L7 Informatics. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little agenda overview just to give you some background about who DMARC Biosciences is for anyone on the call that isn't familiar with us. I'll give a little introduction for Vasu, and then Vasu will take it away for the presentation. For questions and answers, we would be very happy for you to ask along the way, and we will also have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. So, DMARC Biosciences, we are your partners in life science workflow optimization. DMARC's been around quite a while now. We were incorporated in early 2008. So it's hard to believe we've been around that long. We came to Canada with the intent to provide solutions for genomic workflows primarily. So our mission statement is we are purpose-driven to identify and distribute leading-edge genomic and other life sciences workflow solutions that accelerate research, development, and diagnostics for scientists. So part of our offering is this L7 Informatics dry lab workflow, but you'll notice that the majority of what we are working on is the wet lab workflow. And in this slide, I'm not going into any great detail, only to say and to make a point of how complex these workflows can be. So there's a lot going on, and DMARC puts that whole equation together, puts the whole solution together to offer you a complete solution for one-stop shop for molecular workflows. Okay, so why L7? So DMARC, we're really passionate about this. We had a big part, or in our own proud way, we had a big part of supplying critical laboratory supplies for the diagnostic labs. And we were very successful at that, and it brought a whole lot of pride and concern for pandemic preparedness. So when the announcements came out for the Canadian Biomanufacturing and Life Sciences Strategy, I thought, what a great way to accelerate what we're doing in Canada from pandemic preparedness and from biomanufacturing. What if we could bring in this innovative and future-looking tool to accelerate what we're doing, to automate, to integrate. And so that's what we're doing here today. That's what we're super passionate about. And so why L7 Informatics for biomanufacturing? It's about being pandemic ready. You're going to see dramatic improvements in operational efficiencies, advanced data integration capabilities, and a big one for biomanufacturing is the assurance of regulatory compliance. Our speaker today, Basu, is the CEO of L7 Informatics, and a little story about L7, just very quickly. We've been working with L7 for almost a decade now, starting with them at a very small stage, early stage startup company, to the point where they are now well beyond that and pushing 250 employees. So it's been quite the ride to watch L7 Informatics and to see them grow. So it's been a pleasure working with Basu and having him support our work in Canada. Dr. Rangadas was the Chief Strategy Officer at Nant Health prior, following its acquisition of NetOrange, the company he founded, to provide an enterprise-wide platform to simplify and optimize care delivery processes in health systems. And before NetOrange, Basu was the first employee of i2 Technologies, which later grew to be a global company that revolutionized the supply chain market through innovative approaches based on the principles of Six Sigma: operations, research, and process optimization. So thank you very much, Vasu, and the L7 team for helping support this very important webinar. We hope you enjoy it. And please, again, feel welcome to ask questions and answers along the way. Basu, take it away.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And everybody, welcome to this webinar. We want to mainly focus on how we can empower Canada's biomanufacturing and life sciences strategy through the creation of the hubs. We've been working on this problem for over a decade now. So I want to present to you what is this platform about, and how is it going to bring about change in terms of cost reduction, time reduction, and velocity of bringing new therapeutics, whether they are advanced or traditional, into market, but without the costs that it typically takes. So let's get straight to the problem. The problem of cost in biomanufacturing is always been how do we integrate research to manufacturing through all these different siloed systems. So this is actually a slide from Gartner, an analyst in this domain. There's lots of fractured processes, lots of siloed systems, lots of Excel spreadsheets, a lot of Google Sheets, and then there are IT systems that don't talk to each other. So the new product development velocity, all the way from concept to research to development to manufacturing, is extremely slow and expensive. And so not only are the processes fractured, but the data is fractured. So when you have to submit to regulatory authorities, you have to spend a lot of time pulling all this information together. And that causes slowness in the entire process. And in the case of a pandemic like we had a few years ago, velocity is about not just time to market, but it saves a lot of lives. It's not about money, but it's a loss of life that can be prevented. So what is this siloed thinking across the product value chain, right? Research has their own system, development has their own systems, manufacturing and quality control has their own systems. So these are very, very expensive to maintain. And it's very difficult to do this again in a new pandemic, or even for advanced therapies, even if there's no pandemic, this will dramatically reduce the need to maintain a lot of siloed IT systems and then integrate all of them. So the goal is to create an integrated research to manufacturing value chain. So I spent 20 years in supply chain management and operations research and Six Sigma. What we're trying to bring to this industry is some of those concepts tied to life sciences, um, product value chains. Um, so if you really look at these systems today in research, development, and manufacturing, there's literally walls between these different departments, and some of it is done within one company, some of it is outsourced. So there's a lot of complexity in managing. Our goal is to break down these walls and really streamline movement of information, whether it be research molecules or research processes to development, and then development does their analytical development, process development, and then transfers the science digitally, not using paper, but digitally to the manufacturing and the QC teams. So this entire process is streamlined. And so then you'll be able to look at, predict the flow of cost of molecules through, development and manufacturing and research much, much better, much faster, and everybody has full visibility to what is happening. So how do we get to this unified science with this unified platforms? First, I just wanted to again share a little bit of the problem statement here. Most of science today is still described in paper. And then you have complex disjointed IT systems. So the goal of this platform is to break down both these barriers. So what we have created, and this just says cell and gene therapy, but it's for any scientific process. We have created a system that can digitally represent science. Like, for example, to represent music, we have MPEG and AAC formats. There is really no standard for representing science and sharing science. Like if I were to share music with somebody on this call, I would just send them an AAC file or an MPEG file, and you could listen to music. And this is what is missing in life sciences, because paper is still the mechanism of knowledge transfer across departments and across companies, and even for research. So what we have created is a digital representation of science where I can build building blocks, and I can drag and drop, and I can very rapidly represent new research experiments, new development processes, as well as new manufacturing processes. And you don't need different systems for different parts of the product value chain, whether it's research or whether it's manufacturing or whether it's process and analytical development. You have the same tool set that manages the entire process and very rapidly allows you to digitally exchange information. And this includes connection to various instruments and equipment. So you're not having to manually capture the data for your batch records or certificates of analysis or process development studies, or to see how your critical process parameters are varying. All of that information is directly gotten from the instruments and equipment into the platform. And then it is stored in what we call as the L7 hub, which allows you to create a library that could be shared among the hubs. So if one of the hubs designed a really nice process for making, I don't know, mRNA, and if there is a need for sharing, you can actually share them through a hub. A hub is like an iTunes store analogy. If your iPhone is the platform, you can easily share music. The L7 Hub is a process of sharing science, sharing methods, sharing manufacturing processes, sharing materials, equipment very rapidly across the hubs or within the hub. We won't get into the details of that, but this is an important concept of, again, in a pandemic preparedness. How do you share science and knowledge among peers that are non-competitive very rapidly and expand manufacturing to different sites without having to do paper-based scientific transfer? So this digital transfer of science becomes very, very important. In fact, during the COVID-19, a lot of our customers are using this platform not for manufacturing of vaccines, but they were using it for diagnosis of using the the standard qPCR process. So we were able to build one standard qPCR process and very rapidly share it with a lot of our customers who then used our platform for testing hundreds and thousands of patients. So that's the first part, is how do you digitalize science, right? Instead of using paper, change the language of science, create a representation of science. We have it in other areas like PDF for documents, like I said, AAC for music, but we need to create a new representation, or a digital representation of science, so you can play science like we play music. The second part is these disjointed IT systems. There's just too many systems across the whole ecosystem, from research, development, manufacturing, and quality control. So this is a Gartner paper in 2018 that talks about how do we get away from these point solutions to unified platforms. And so what L7 has been building over the last decade is this powerful platform called ESP, which stands for Enterprise Science Platform, which, much like the iPhone, has all of the apps you need from research, development to manufacturing. So it's a very powerful, robust platform that allows you to digitalize and store science, but it also has the applications for sample management, for location, which is freezer management, inventory management of reagents and samples, the scheduling of all laboratory operations and manufacturing operations, notebooks for electronic lab notebooks. They could be used for electronic study notebooks for doing process development and analytical development, laboratory LIMS systems for running experiments and doing quality control, MES systems for making batches and creating the batch record, environmental monitoring studies, stability studies. It can also integrate external systems. So all of this is on one single data platform and workflow platform. Much like the iPhone, you can add new applications to it. You can write your own apps on this platform, and it talks to your financial systems and your inventory systems. And it also talks to all the instruments, equipment, distributed control systems, and SCADA, and PLC, and other instruments and equipment. So you have all your information in one place, going from research development into manufacturing. And this allows what I call as the continuous improvement cycle. So science is all about continuous improvement, and manufacturing and process development as well is all about continuous improvement. So you design a scientific process, you store it, you execute the process, look at the results, and see how the process is varying, and then improve the process. So this is the virtuous cycle that goes on and on and on. And then and so you want all of this to be happening in one platform to give you the cost optimization as well as the velocity with which you can do this. And what L7 ESP does is, as it is optimizing your science across research, development, and manufacturing, it creates everything as a knowledge graph. So you can actually see how is this sample related to this other sample? Where did I extract this RNA from? Is it coming from which parent sample, or which subject, which site, which study? With all of these different concepts are all interrelated and searchable and findable within the platform, because you don't need to integrate multiple different databases. It's all one integrated knowledge graph that ESP creates. And so we built this platform to be cloud agnostic, so it can be living in any cloud infrastructure. It's got a very robust life sciences data models that supports research models as well as development models and manufacturing models. there's a very robust orchestration engine and the connectivity layer that talks to different instruments. And then there is a visibility layer with applications that I mentioned, all the sample management to manufacturing execution to laboratory to notebooks, environmental monitoring to stability. All of the apps are already pre-built. Or we can work with your existing app, so you don't have to replace what you already have. And then we have a very powerful business intelligence layer that allows you to look at how is that process varying and how is my experimental results changing. And then in the next couple of releases, we're going to be adding integrations to large language models. So instead of building a BI tool, you can ask ESP, can you generate this report for me? Okay, hey, what is the variation of this process parameter over the last 10 batches? So the ability to interact with the system as opposed to doing work and paying consultants to do the work. And then the next phase is once you have integrated AI and LLM is self-optimization. Is if you look at the bioreactor and look at the parameters, be able to modify the parameters to save the batch or to improve the development process. So this is all coming in the future, but for right now, we are at level 5, but very rapidly moving towards level 6 and level 7. Some case studies we have in the one of our academic partners that we're working on for the last couple of years is Dana-Farber. Dana-Farber is there in their cell manipulation lab, uses us for all of their cell and gene therapy. They do a lot of phase 1, phase 2 trials, completely digitalized all their workflows for QC testing, and now we're working on all of their manufacturing processes. Another customer of ours on the research realm is Jackson Laboratory. They're doing about 15 core labs, all automated, automating using L7 for the mass spec lab, for their single cell lab, for their cellular structural engineering lab. So different labs, and then the flow lab, they're all automated using our workflow / data management engine. So no science is too complex for the platform. We have extremely complex science that we're doing with this platform. This is an example of an immunology company that is doing immune stimulated cell manufacturing, all the way from taking the patient's blood on the left-hand side to doing upstream quality control, manufacturing, downstream QC, and then shipment using Cryoport, World Courier, FedEx back to the hospital for infusion. Again, a fully integrated process engine as opposed to buying multiple different systems. Another case study is ATCC. ATCC is a US government-owned entity which makes a lot of bacterial and cell lines as well as human cell lines. And so they use our platform for manufacturing and quality control, completely taking out 11 truckloads of paper that they're generating every year, fully digitalizing all their science, and completely making their business digital. This is a case study from Canada, so I wanted to add that Agri-Food Agriculture Canada has been a customer for the last 5-6 years. They have completely digitalized all their sequencing workflows across AAFC. Another customer is Solaris, which is a CDMO in the cell therapy space. Again, we're doing all of their certificate of analysis, certificate of testing, control charts and intelligence reporting, sample tracking, as well as sample registration. Another customer is Vernell Biosciences. It's very close to Montreal. They're up in Vermont. They are an mRNA manufacturing and QC company. So they use our unified platform again for completely managing mRNA research, development, and manufacturing of mRNA products. I added this slide, which is a customer that's soon to be a customer. It's a top 5 academic cancer center in the US. I can't share the name yet. They did a 6-month analysis of our platform, and they realized that, having this unified platform is less than half the cost of them buying a lot of point solutions and then integrating all of them together. The cost of IT, not to mention the speed at which uh, uh, the processes work, as well as the speed at which they can do regulatory submissions, will dramatically reduce having, one unified platform as opposed to a lot of point solutions, which has been what the industry has been doing for the last several decades. So in summary, the L7 ESP unified platform, contextualizes all of the data and manages all your workflows. It provides all the applications that you need to go from research, development to manufacturing. So it's a fully regulated platform, breaks down all your walls between the different departments within each hub, and then streamlines the movement of information and knowledge um, through digital transfer of science, and then helps shrink the product life cycle tremendously, producing higher velocity, better quality, reduced cost. So this is the approach that we're recommending. There are other customers of L7 that are in big pharma that are just recently signed up. I cannot, again, say the names yet uh, or do any case studies because they're just beginning their implementation. But this systems approach of looking at the entire research to manufacturing as an integrated system, and using some operations research and supply chain management concepts, we will be able to reduce your operational costs, less people, less cost, and better utilization of your important assets, but also be able to get you to market faster and also show, because of that integrated data, reproducible science that will lead to faster products and better products. So with that, I just wanted to pause and see if there's any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer. I also have my team with me here, and would love to take any questions and love to give you any more details that weren't in the presentation. So
Thank you very much, Vasu. One of the things that comes to mind when I'm talking about this is about the integration of systems in place. So there's often a concern, oh, is this does this system take over? And so can you reflect for our listeners on how disjointed systems can be brought together? Just getting on with the integration explanation.
yeah, that's a good question, Jeffrey. Yeah, so L7 looks at whether it's an instrument or a piece of equipment or another external legacy system that is already in place. It doesn't differentiate between the three that I mentioned. So we build what we call as connector to these existing systems and make it part of the overall integrated data ecosystem. So it's not a rip and replace. It's not a throw all your systems away. It's a platform that, holistically brings together your legacy systems into the fold along with your instruments and equipment, and adds, much more modern applications at the same time, bringing all your data together. So submissions becomes easier, compliance becomes easier, increases your velocity, but also more importantly, it improves the utilization of your scarce resources, instruments, labs, and rooms by showing you where your capacity problems are and where there's opportunities. Some of our customers actually use a platform for budgeting purposes to show their finance folks, hey, this is where if you get me one more instrument, I can increase the throughput. So there is actually data-driven decision making instead of just saying, hey, can I buy another sequencer or can I buy another flow cytometer? You can actually show data with the system saying, look, I'm overutilized by 150%. So if you give me this another instrument, I can actually reduce the bottlenecks and increase velocity of my labs.
Thank you. There is a question in the question and answer. Can you speak to ROI studies of L7 utilized in brownfield environment versus greenfield regulated environments?
Yeah, so we do have extensive ROI studies in both brownfield and greenfield environments. Uh, so we just finished a proof of value with a top 5 pharma company in the world, where they looked at this platform and in a brownfield approach saying, hey, I don't want to replace my electronic lab notebook, but I want to create one centralized data process engine that talks to plate readers and optimizes my entire scientific workflow. And they said we need to do a 4x ROI. So if it's going to cost X to implement the platform and and purchase it, I need 4 to 5x the return. So they did a very detailed proof of value. We did a POC with them, and for almost 5 to 6 months. And now we are engaging on the actual product because they said this is a no-brainer. It eliminates several redundant systems we have and increases our velocity. So of course, they won't share all the details with us, but we definitely do proof of value and proof of concepts with our customers. And the same on the greenfield side. I kind of showed you a graph previously. We worked with a top 5 academic cancer center that's building their own manufacturing facility for doing phase 1, phase 2 trials. And it was a no-brainer for them when they did the study in this greenfield. They're saying, I can eliminate several different systems. I can eliminate IT staff. I can eliminate the need of integration between these siloed systems. And they found a 50% reduction in overall cost in a greenfield environment. So it doesn't matter greenfield, brownfield. L7 ESP can increase velocity of your overall product lifecycle.
The questions are coming from the question and answers in the text, Basu. So I'm happy to read these out, but they're being answered in real time also by your colleagues. So I'm not sure if you want to address these directly right now.
Okay, I'm reading one right now. You mentioned a lab did a 6-month study with your company developer. Could you provide some more details on this, how it came up, or what kind of questions we asked? Were they able to do a demo free for 6 months? So that was Brian Taylor. So Brian, yeah, this was a very involved proof of concept. So we did charge them small amounts of money, not for licensing the platform, but just to help them with the proof of concept. So our smaller customers, we can very rapidly do, 2 or 3 weeks of, proof of concepts, or up to even 4 weeks. We don't charge, but anything that's for 6 months that requires a significant investment from L7, we do charge. But like I said, we have very, very different case studies. We can come to you with a lot of knowledge. So we can definitely chat and then see what you want to evaluate and how we can accelerate your evaluation process. But we're very, very open for doing these kind of POCs, because our intent with this is to make companies self-sufficient. The goal is not to sell you software and then sell you consulting as much as sell you the software and teach you how to fish. It's got a low-code, no-code environment that enables you to very rapidly build new processes, new data models, without having to write a lot of code, if at all. So yeah, sometimes a 6-month process is very specific integrations to their legacy systems, right? They wanted to show how we integrated to one of their homegrown systems. So those take time and resources. So that's why we charged. From Indri Purvana, great system. I'm still unclear how one can start. How would you transfer the lab notes, QC log results, CTA submissions, all studios within CMC sections, all studies within CMC sections into this platform? So Indri, this is you do it step by step. It's not a big bang. You start with a constrained department. So like we can start with manufacturing, or we can start with development, and then we look at your legacy sources, and then we write connectors to translate all of that. If it's on paper, some of that information will be loaded in as paper, but all new forward going batch records and certificate of analysis will all start getting digitalized, and then the submissions will start getting digitalized. FDA is coming up with new digital standards for submissions. We are following those very, very carefully. So just preparing ourselves for digital submissions to regulatory authorities. So we can definitely, talk in more detail and figure out, every customer is slightly different, but we can definitely put you on a path to digital transformation. From Scott Clark, what is the key competitive advantage strategy for L7 maintaining and connecting batch-to-batch genealogy across all systems, thinking about the knowledge graph you showed? I think the knowledge graph is essentially not just showing batch-to-batch genealogy, it's showing the subject to the patient, to the subject to the samples to the drug that was manufactured, if it was a cell therapy or another therapy. So it's really relating all the different concepts together. And the more importantly, Scott, it's doing it across time. So you can actually go back in time and see, how the different batches performed, or how what was the parent-child relationship between, a sample and its sample's children. It could be RNA that you're extracting or DNA that you're extracting. So all of those sample to sample, sample to batch, sample to experiment, sample to project, sample to study, sample to storage, sample to freezer, all of those relationships are maintained. But of course, you don't have to create all the relationships day one. You already have a freezer management system. You don't want to, do the sample to freezer relationship in this platform day one. So it's really all about knowing what is happening in the entire business through that knowledge graph. It's very easy to find stuff. You can go back in time and say, January 2022 to February 24, what are the different experiments did I do? What are the results of those experiments? Or you can focus in on a project or a study and then show all the samples that were associated in that. So there's a lot of ways that that knowledge graph can be used to slice and dice the data that is stored in the ESP platform. And the genealogy also maintains the chain of identity and the chain of custody, which the FDA is going to require for some of these advanced therapies, especially if the patient is the source material for your drug manufacturing. Good questions.
Good answers.
Brian Taylor, can you comment on the data security with this platform? Yeah, we are fully HIPAA compliant. We are fully GMP, GLP, GCP compliant. We also have Part 11 compliant. We also have our own quality management systems. When we get bug reports from the customers, we open CAPAs. We resolve them just like any regulated platform. So even if you use our platform in research or manufacturing or quality control, it's a fully regulated platform with full security. So there is security at the application level, there is security at the data level, at the process level. Some people can only see certain processes and protocols. Some people can only see certain data entities. So it's a very complex security model that'll work for all regulated environments. An anonymous attendee, how long does it typically take to onboard a new customer? So we have many applications. So typical onboarding takes about 4 to 6 months, from blueprinting what your existing systems are and what the process to implementation. It's about 4 to 6 months, and afterwards we can increase the velocity after we've trained your folks or your team members to start making modifications.
Any other questions? Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Vasu, thank you so much. Unless, oh, there's another one. Are there different pricing models for NFP?
There are, what's it?
This is coming from Graham Cronmar.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what NFP is.
Graham? Oh, not for
Oh,
profit.
not for profit. Okay. Yeah, we also do by size as well as not for profit. Yeah, we're not going to charge our not for profit customers as much as we charge our big pharma customers, but yeah, we do have different pricing models. Academic research and cancer centers are very high on our priority list because a lot of the academic cancer centers and when in the US are really the starting grounds for new research, and we are really enabling them to do all the phase 1, phase 2 trials, not just for investigator-led studies of their own molecules, but also for external big pharma wanting to do phase 1, phase 2 trials. So we're doing both those activities, including the manufacturing of the product, like at Dana-Farber and Rutgers Cancer Center, etc.
Is there any more questions from our audience? We're happy to take them. Okay, I think we'll call our quits here, Vasu. So we can also leave it open, folks, of course, to any follow-up through email. You have our contact information, and we'll be following up, of course, with you. But thank you again, Vasu. This was hugely important from our perspective. I'm so glad that we could get this message out. So thank you all, truly, from my perspective for attending. I really appreciate all the hubs being represented here and beyond, of course. So thank you for attending. Feel welcome to send questions beyond this webinar. Thanks again to Vasu and the L7 team for supporting this.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thanks to the DMARC team for giving us this opportunity. Thank you. Thanks for all the attendees and all the great questions that you asked, all valid, but we'll be more than happy to dive a little more deeper in the next go round. Thank you.